on behalf of PMOfficers Global Community, we want to say thank you. Thank you very much for coming to share your thoughts, your experiences in a very interesting topic, because many organizations, from my point of view, are currently wondering how to start to set up a PMO. It's not so easy to respond this question. So we are. I'm excited. I'm very happy to listen to you today, and hoping all our audience that currently is online with us. Thank you very much for joining us. And in the near future, in our YouTube channel or Odyssey Web3 blockchain channel, no, for sharing with our global community in Latin America, in Europe, in Asia, and the rest of the world. For us, it's a huge pleasure having you right here, right now. Thank you, Peter, from Barcelona. Thank you very much. Most welcome.
Thank you very much, Leonardo. Thank you for the invitation. And actually, what I would like to share is mostly not for organization, but for people. What people who would like to set up a PMO, or who would like to renew or develop a PMO would consider. So let's start with my introduction. You can see it on the screen. I have more than 15 years experience in project management. I have some experience in process development and other other, let's say, domains. And currently, I am the ambassador of the PMO Global Alliance and the PMO leader in Hungary. But that's enough of me, and let's move on with our current topic. So I would say all you need is to consider, and basically all you need is to set up a PMO, or before set up a PMO, is a mindset, a proper mindset, and common sense. And basically that's it, at least from my point of view. And well, I would say that thank you for your attention, but we have almost 1 hour slot. So what I would like to give you are some thoughts, some deeper thoughts, what I mean by mindset. And I really hope that by the end of this session, we will get to a kind of summary of what I will be talking about. And at the really end, of course, there will be an option to talk a bit more in person if you will have some questions. So let's start with what I have mentioned at the beginning, that the PMO, to set up a PMO, is start with an idea, and it can be a new PMO, or it can be a reform PMO, to reform a PMO. So the idea comes from either from you, I mean, either from a, let's say, you can be anything or anybody within an organization. You can have the idea to set up a PMO. Why not? Ideally, if you have the idea, you would like to move on with this idea. So the idea could come from you, or it could come from the management, from the top management. The CEO would have an idea that, oh, I heard that another company made a PMO and it sounds really, really a great thing to do. And I assume some of you know this methodology. This is the PMO value ring methodology, but actually I could copy paste here any kind of PMO framework. What matters is that the ideation, when the idea comes up, and between the idea and between the actual setup of the PMO, there is a space. So that space might be few hours, few days, maybe in some cases, a few months, even a few months. But there is a space, and I would like to give you some thoughts what you should think about during this space, during this time. Well, normally people don't really think about this space. So the idea comes, let's make it simple. So the management decides to create a PMO and give the task to you. And usually when we are thinking about it, the next step is you start the process. You start to set up a roadmap, you do a plan. If you have a framework in your pocket, you start that process of the framework. For example, you start to collect the needs of the stakeholders. And to make it a bit, I mean, this part, what I would like to talk about, to make it a bit more general, I would say that actually it doesn't really matter if the idea comes from you, although you might think that, okay, I have the idea, I need to propose it to the management, I have to talk with ABCD stakeholders, and it looks really different when a CEO decides to, okay, let's do a PMO. And you might think it's valid for the type of the work you will do. So to set up a new PMO seems totally different thing than to reform a PMO, to develop an existing PMO. But actually, well, at least from my point of view, it doesn't really matter, because if let's talk about the types. If you set up a new PMO within a department and that PMO is doing only some little functions, only with some authority, that means it has no big impact on the whole organization. Or it can happen that the task is to create a new enterprise PMO who is controlling everything and who is doing a bunch of functions with a really high level of maturity. That means it has a really big impact on the organization and on the people as well. And this might be valid for a PMO development as well. So if you do a tiny modification within your PMO, that creates a smaller impact, but it might happen that the development is so huge that it has a really big effect on the organization and on the people within the organization. So from this point of view, it doesn't really matter where the idea comes from and what type of work will you do. I think what matters is the people's relation and understanding of the PMO. and the organization's maturity as a consequence. How they understand the PMO, what they expect, what they see, what are their previous experiences. And regarding these understandings and these relations, let's check some thoughts on needs. So actually, what the PMO does are providing functions. And these functions are kind of reply for the needs of the organizations. But let's check some other needs. Of course, you might know a lot regarding the organizational needs and how these are connected with PMOs and so on. But let's talk a bit about those kind of needs which are not really spoken when we are talking about PMO. What about people's needs, the people who are working in the organization? What about your needs? Who would set up a PMO? I'm pretty sure you know this nice pyramid by Mr. Maslow, with this self-actualization, esteem needs, love and belonging, safety needs, and psychological needs. So my thought on this, that at the really beginning, what you have to check is your needs. I assume that you should check if your needs are in line with the task to be done. The task is to set up a PMO. Maybe not only to set up a PMO, but to manage a PMO. And if your need is not in line with it, so for example, if deep inside your self-actualization need is regarding another profession, for example, you would like to be, you really love painting, and that is a kind of how you show yourself, how you self-actualize yourself, then doing a PMO may be not the best option. But well, most probably, as you are PMO professionals, most probably you are dealing with PMOs, and you are in line regarding PMOs and self-actualization. So, but I would say that this is a really first step. Most probably everybody is doing this unconsciously. And regarding the others and the organizational needs, which can be written with the same, it would matter when they will be stakeholders of the PMO. As we can see many times when you are collecting needs from stakeholders, what they expect from a PMO, there are many different expectations, and although it can be understood as a first step of a PMO setup, or a second after you do a roadmap or plan, it is advisable to think through what would be the needs of the impactful people and impactful organizational entities. that would be very, very helpful when you start the setup. You would have some expectations yourself when you will work with them. Yeah, and depending on your needs, your own self needs, you can be your biggest ally and biggest enemy as well. There are some biases as well as another thought regarding what we should consider before starting a setup. And I would start with generalization. Why I say it's a bias? Do you know that quote from Mr. Albert Einstein that if you do the same thing, you shouldn't expect a different result. That is, I would say it is not true, or I do not agree with this statement because you cannot do the same thing again and again. There are always some tiny differences, and these tiny differences means that they are not the same. Although in an average, we might understood that they are the same. And this is a kind of generalization. I wouldn't say it is bad or good, but let me show you an example. When you see these pictures, yeah, a ferocious bear and attacking snake, the first thing, most probably, which comes to your mind is danger. This is a kind of generalization when you see a ferocious animal. This is most probably even coded in our DNAs because we experienced these not pictures but real life events when for example a bear attacked one of our ancestors and this thing, I mean the danger as itself, when we see several different type of things, I mean attacking animals, it is a generalization. And why I say it is good, or it is, maybe it is good, because generalization is an evolutionary tool for understanding and survival. We understand things in general. But just to go to the PMO topic, let's assume that your generalization towards one of our board member of the company is that he doesn't like changes, doesn't like the new things. And you would deal with him to accept your plan to create a PMO. Your expectation is that he will refuse, or there will be a really hard discussion on things like that. Why? Because you generalized his previous motions, attitudes as a rejection to you. This can help you to prepare for some future actions, but you might fail as well. Maybe next time his reaction will be something else. Maybe he will be happy that, ooh, PMO is a good thing. Let's continue from another point of view with this generalization. When you see on these pictures, what you see are houses. This is generalization because these two houses are totally different, actually. But these are houses, right? That is the generally accepted thing or definition for these objects. These are houses. So again, back to the generalization and understanding. People from their past experience do a generalization. For example, your stakeholders had previous experience or understood PMO based on others' experience, so they generalize the PMO phenomenon as one of these houses. Let's assume the half of your stakeholders think that the PMO is like the house on the left side, the other half of your stakeholders assume or generalize the PMO as the house on the right side. Sure, they are both PMOs, but they have totally different characteristics, and that means totally different expectations from stakeholders. And again, that means totally different communication and handling stakeholders, handling of these stakeholders. Let's move on with some generalization when it is about ourselves when we think about PMOs. And we take, for example, framework. The generalization of the framework is well, a framework is a generalized best case practice, let's say, which can be applied on almost every cases. So when you would use a framework regarding PMOs, it is like to buy a house within this row of attached houses. They might be seem the same, have the same foundations, maybe even have the same furniture within them. But when somebody goes in and starts to live in these houses, those houses won't be the same. That will be a different house. So even if you use a generalized solution, it will be different than the others. And this is a kind of thought that you should that should be in your head, in your brain when you are thinking about to use a framework. And maybe it was designed for talking about a house, for a family of 2 kids with usually accepted number of bedrooms, bathrooms, with the furniture that is usually needed for a family. But when you move in and when you start using it, it might come up that it is not the best for you. And you would need to do some changes. On the other hand, if you are creating your own house, it might be suited for your needs, but when you start to use that house, it might come up that you forgot to build enough bedrooms. Your furniture you bought into that house is not usable, and things like that. And you need to have to do major modifications. It can happen, but at least it is yours. And in some parts, that house fits better to you. than the previously made house, as in this attached row of houses. So, oh, and one more thing. Let's look at it from the other direction. You have a PMO, but even if it is a pre-established PMO, I mean, using a pre-established framework like a framework, or if the PMO is done totally by you, you should think about that part as well, that the building blocks, the bricks, the mortar, the furnitures you use are identical, which means the parts of the processes, the issues you are facing, in the really foundation of these are the same in every kind of organization. So regarding generalization, you can see it from many different angles, and you can use them during a PMO setup, or this can remain in your subconscious mind. Yeah, another bias can be the fear of new and dealing with change. Why I didn't include this together, because change might generate some excitement as well, which might be a kind of positive feeling, while fear is usually a negative feeling. But let's assume here's a guy, you, or somebody, some stakeholder within the organization, or even an organization entity, or the whole organization, or even an industry, or even the whole world, as we could see at the start of the coronavirus, that when something new happens, then there is always a fear. This is not surprising, because I assume all of us know this nice picture with the comfort zone, and when we need to get out of our comfort zone, it is always comes with a bit of fear. Maybe it generates excitement, and I could bring a picture regarding the stress curve, that little stress goes to boreness, and a lot of stress creates, in this particular case, more fear, and middle amount of stress might cause excitement. But what I want to talk about is that we need to deal with this, because whenever we create a PMO, or whenever we are modifying something within our PMO, it creates some amount of fear, the fear of new, and basically it is a change. We need to do change management. We need to count with that change management will be needed. How can we deal with the topic of creating a PMO or modifying the PMO? There are, I show here 3 different types of answers, which can be that we create something totally new. That means a lot of change. And in that case, we get out of our comfort zone much. Or we can use the already existing, let's say, frameworks or structures. For example, if we created a PMO previously, or if we have a really detailed action plan, how to create a PMO and the structure and things like that, we can use that one as well. Why not? And that's the first is a risk play. The last is a safe play. We even try to do some kind of hybrid solutions. I have to say that all of these could fail, but any of this can be a winning game. It depends. It depends how you use these things. Oh yeah, and regarding the fear and the change, well, actually, fear is an evolutionary tool for survival. As we could see some slides previously, of course, if there is danger, there's a fear. If there's a change, there's a fear. And the goal is to survive. But change is an other tool for evolution to move forward, to develop. Another thought is the mindset. Yeah, I mentioned that at my first slide. Well, that can be a lot of types of mindset that you can use. I assume that in most cases we use these mindset unconsciously. We have a basic mindset. In some situation, we change our mindset, but these are mostly unconscious. It might be useful if we think through what kind of mindset I have usually, and what kind of mindset should I have to be successful when I am setting up a PMO. These are some examples that I can have a mindset of a leader, change maker, an innovator, builder. My mindset should be adaptive, flexible, agile. I should be proactive, predictive, the one who goes the extra mile. Regarding the environment and the informations and the stakeholders, maybe I should be skeptical and suspicious. I should be objective, not emotional. And the last thing is an interesting, the last line is an interesting thing. If you set your mind as you think another person thinks, so if you imagine yourself in the other's shoe, what are they thoughts, needs, imagination, expectation, and things like that. This can be useful when you are negotiating, you are communicating during a PMO setup. Oh yeah. Expect the best, prepare for the worst. Think through all the possibilities. Well, it is, again, not a new thing, I assume, for you, that during, during any kind of work, or even in our personal life, we are wearing different hats. Within the organization, and especially when we are setting up PMO, we most probably will have this hat issue. What hat is on my head? If I am a PMO manager or a project manager, as actually to set up a PMO, it has a start, it has an end when the PMO is set up. So that might be understood as a project, and I might act as a project manager. We've talked about change previously. Yeah, I should think like a change manager. I should wear that hat. When we are dealing with stakeholders, I should be an account manager or salesperson, and even a finance manager, and so on. The list goes on. So most cases, again, this is a subconscious, unconscious mindsets, but it might be useful again if you think through how you will act next time. You can have a mix of hats in the same time. Why not? Yeah, you can wear a wolf pelt as well. This is again how you act. You can act like a lonely wolf. You might say that, okay, I have no other choice. I am alone. I got this task to set up a PMO, or I have the idea to set up a PMO and I will do it alone. But maybe it is not like that. Well, it is better if you have a pack. So if you have a team and to work with them, you can split the tasks and things like that. But if you are alone, let's say officially, it doesn't mean that you are alone. You might try collaboration, even if you have a pack. I mean, if you have a team, you can use the collaboration as a tool to not to be alone. What does it mean? Well, you are collaborate with stakeholders who has impact on your PMO setup, or when the PMO will be set and when the PMO will execute functions, there will be stakeholders for sure. Before you set up a PMO, you can think about it, or you should think about with whom should I contact it, with whom should I collaborate to make my life and my work easier. And maybe you can share some tasks, you can get some additional information, you can get some support when you are collaborating. So being a lonely wolf is not always meaning that you will be alone if you are collaborating. And yeah, I assume some of you have heard this quote that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And together is not always a team. It might mean other people who you are collaborating with. Yeah, let me share a quote with you from Martin Parlet, the PMO leader of Montserrat. He mentioned that on the PMOs around the world event, that PMO is always the new kid on the block, which means that whenever you are creating a PMO, or well, for sure when you are developing a PMO, you are doing this in an existing organization, which means that the organization has a culture. and which means that the PMO must fit in that culture. Of course, when the PMO comes in, the culture will be changed. But when it enters into the organization, then it has an already existing culture.
Peter, 10 more minutes.
Yeah, I can see. I try to speed up. Thanks for mentioning. So, and yeah, the culture might be much stronger than structures and strategies. So always take care of the culture. Yeah, and we are reaching the end. So let's talk about a bit about what kind of approach you might use when you are observing the environment. You can I call it the scaling. So this means that the different levels of environment what we are talking about. We have people with needs, who we should deal with, who we should convince, who we are collaborating with. We have the organization and organizational departments, entities, which has their own cultures, strategies, and so on. And we have the big environment, for example, industry or the country, or we can talk about political environment, legal environment, where can found trends, restrictions, and things like that. These are building on each other. That's why I mentioned that it's a kind of scaling, and we can see the things like this from this kind of approach. From the you can start from whichever end you want. So from the big to the small, or from the small, I mean people, to the big, like the whole environment. This can be an approach you might use when you are thinking about your PMO setup. There can be another approach, which I call the kind of system view or systematic, when you see the processes, the functions, sub-processes, bigger process groups, inter-industrial supply chains and functional areas. This can be another approach when you are thinking about thinking about where you imagine your PMO. Let me just jump back a bit. So there can be other approaches that you are using. These are just two examples, but I would say that it's great when you can change your approach and you can see things from different angles. And if you see things from different angles, or if you are choosing only one approach to use, that would help you, I mean, to see the big picture and the tiny parts as well. That would help you in many things, to identify stakeholders, to identify and their, let's say, needs, their relation to PMO, their possible expectations. You can identify weak points, focus points, that can be even selling points for your PMO, or which can be major strategical objectives with what your PMO needs to deal with. You can identify communication channels. You can imagine before you start anything, you can imagine where your PMO could fit within the strategy and the organizational structure. And these kind of things might depend on point of views. Ooh, okay, I really need to speed this up. There's a question that you should ask. Do we need a PMO? Do we really need a PMO? And for this, you need to think about stakeholder expectations, strategy alignment, value perceptions, and possible benefit realizations. Even you might think about what will be the ROI that the PMO might generate. Will that be enough to validate my PMO? These are those kind of questions that you should think about. In most cases, what you will have really high level ballpark estimations on these. I mean, how your PMO will be aligned with the strategy. What kind of value would you create, and so on. As you haven't done anything yet, you didn't even start the planning, but at least this gives you an idea if the organization really needs a PMO or not. Or if you need to change something, most probably when you will do the PMO setup. For example, the PMO would be a departmental PMO, but before you begin, you know that the ROI won't be enough, which means that you need to change. You need to start to build an enterprise PMO to have enough ROI at the really end. Yeah, I won't talk about this. Okay, and a short summary. I talked a lot of things which which were actually connected with PMOs, and most probably you have heard about that when you heard about leadership or management or strategies or structures, change management and things like that. Why? Because I talked about these things because PMOs are connected with all of these. Actually, with strategy, with structure, with organizational culture, with processes, projects, peoples, tools which we use, change itself, or even transformation, innovation, the environment, as I mentioned, it can be whatever environment. And well, with you, of course, and there can be many other things to think about before you start to set up a PMO. But as I mentioned at the really beginning, in some cases, you have really small time. You won't have time to think through all of these things and to dive deep into details, because you will have few hours, few days, few weeks till from ideation till the actual start of the work. So bad news, you need to prioritize, focus, and delegate. And let me give you a final generalization at the really end. Find your way of understanding of, let's say, of everything. Setting up a PMO is as easy as everything else in life. And well, as a really final thought, everything is up to you. So thank you very much for your time. I really hope that I could bring some interesting point of views. And I really hope that you benefited at least a bit of this session. And I pass the word to Leonardo.
Thank you, Peter. Um, it's a very thank you for sharing your thoughts. It's very complicated when we are talking about setup on a PMO, and even more complicated when we are talking about people, no? Because uh, uh, it's not so easy or not so simple. The theory is pretty good, very pretty good. The theory when we're talking about this, but in practice is a high level of complex, no, to put in practice with, because nowadays when we are in a collaboration and we are a part of PMO, or we are a leader PMO officer, or we are a PMO consultant role, to put everything on in the same path in a setup all together is oh, very complicated. We are and even is another level of complex when we are in international environments, different cultures, different countries, different languages, different time zones. Now, when we are working together in several time zones and put all together, it's very complex. You have mentioned it. I like it very much when you said the people trying to do her best, no? As much as possible, the best as they can. But it's not so simple, and to put all together, no.
Really true. Wow. And we might expect the best from the people, but referring to one of my slides, maybe their needs lead them somewhere else. So maybe even if we expect the best, they are not providing the best, their best. That gives another challenge for the whole complex picture. Yeah, I that's why I mentioned that everything in life is as simple as setting up a PMO. Even I would say that many things are depends on the point of view, and complexity, I would say, in many cases are relative. So and you can analyze one thing, for example, a PMO, from different angles, and the more angles you are analyzing it, it becomes more and more complex. Oh, there are plenty of plans.
You have mentioned it, no, about something about the PMO Global Alliance, isn't it?
Yeah, regarding that one, we are launching our PMO Global Alliance Hungary Hub. Most probably in the middle of March, we will have an official local announcement, as we announced that it will come at the PMOs around the world conference. We were already announced that it will come. I announced it here again that it will come, and most probably we will have an official opening at the middle of March. So we will have an official Hungarian hub of the PMO Global Alliance. Thank you very much. Same to you, Leonardo.
Peter, see you in the next time. We want to say thank you out there, global community. Don't forget, we have another session in the next week. So greetings, Peter from Barcelona, Spain. All the best, health, safe, a lot of work.
Thank you. Thank you, Leonardo.
Take care. See you next time. Thank you very much. All
Thank you.
the webinar series, the magic of the PMO. Thank you very much. All.